Should Kemi Badenoch cheer or fear Elon Musk's interventions in British domestic politics? Over a 2-week period, Musk has endorsed the Free Tommy Robinson campaign. The business tycoon then demanded that the British government minister Jess Phillips immediately replace Robinson in prison, abusing her as a rape genocide apologist. And, for good measure, the world's richest man informed his 211 million followers on X that Nigel Farage doesn't have what it takes as a political leader. Musk advised Reform members to get rid of Farage, failing to notice that Reform is a political entity that is owned by Nigel Farage. Musk's commentary on British affairs may have contributed to Kemi Badenoch's bullet points for last Wednesday's PMQs. She confronted the Prime Minister with a series of allegations related to the sexual abuse of girls around the country by Muslim grooming gangs, and insisted that he launch a new inquiry into the scandal. Predictably, and with eminently reasonable justification for so doing, Sir Keir Starmer said no. "The core allegation is of a cover-up, and it is false," wrote the excellent Raphael Baer, discussing Badenoch's performance in his Guardian newspaper column. There was an inquiry with a report published in 2022. Labour's choice not to hold another inquiry, when recommendations of the first one are still being implemented, is the same decision the Tories made when they were in government. No party leader who is interested in one day governing on behalf of every British citizen could endorse the view expressed by Robert Jenrick, Shadow Justice Secretary, that the real problems are multiculturalism, men of Pakistani origin and importing people from alien cultures. Robert Jenrick's burial of Britain's South Asian Muslim men under the rubble of a terrible scandal and his own personal malice is entirely deliberate. The Conservative MP for Newark, who was defeated by Badenoch in last autumn's leadership contest, knows that he cannot lose if he gains the attention of an admiring social media boss with an international megaphone. Jenrick's Powellite rhetoric allows his party to present itself as the defender of white British girls, a political signal it hopes will be received loud and clear by disaffected Tory voters who have been seduced by Reform. And Jenrick is not alone in this cynical Tory propaganda campaign. Former Prime Minister Liz Truss, who might have been expected to defend Britain's government from the criticism of a foreign businessman, did precisely the opposite. Truss reposted Musk's attack on safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips and amplified his fear that British justice is not serving British people. The former Prime Minister also claimed that the Labour government could prosecute anyone who wished to discuss the mostly Pakistani heritage men who formed rape gangs targeting young white girls. "This was unbelievable, unconscionable and immoral," Truss declared. Meanwhile, Andrew Norfolk, the journalist who broke the grooming gang scandal for the Times newspaper almost a decade ago, said that Sir Keir Starmer, whilst Director of Public Prosecutions, had increased the number of cases brought against alleged Muslim paedophiles. But the Conservatives were in no mood to let facts interfere with a good line of attack. James Cleverly, who was Home Secretary and Foreign Secretary in the previous Conservative government, said the Prime Minister's dismissal of a new inquiry showed his bad faith. This is exactly the sort of culture war politics that Conservatives hope will generate media headlines and resonate positively with voters. But this is a high-risk tactic, with unpredictable consequences for Badenoch and her party. It remains extraordinary that the terrible murder of 3 young girls in Southport last summer should have detonated riots which targeted wholly innocent asylum seekers in many different towns in England and Northern Ireland. Under Badenoch, the Conservative Party has analysed these riots and digested Musk's commentary, described as baseless innuendo by the former Tory Attorney General Dominic Grieve. The party's leadership have now concluded that the tinderbox of Britain's race relations needs Tory kerosene and matches. Senior Conservatives and their Tommy Robinson-styled foot soldiers are currently obsessed with Muslim men of South Asian heritage, whom they routinely dismiss as sexual degenerates. All people of good conscience agree that it is appalling that girls have been sexually abused. The victims deserve support and assistance, and the criminals should receive the harshest of punishments. The racial character of victim and perpetrator is undeniable, but it is surely appalling that this factor is used to defame through sweeping generalization, not only Pakistani Muslim men in particular, but also Britain's multicultural society. Robert Jenrick is one politician who ought to know better. He is married to the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors and should, presumably, be familiar with the consequences of community demonization. Moreover, the Conservative Party leader spent 16 years in Nigeria, a country torn apart by civil strife in Biafra. So Badenoch is complicit in this raising of the country's racial temper. Her actions are incontrovertibly guided by a desire to reap the political benefits from the tirades of Jenrick, Truss, and Musk. The Conservative leader champions free speech and insists that Britons must be able to have tough conversations. So what will she say when the purveyors of Islamophobia eventually direct their attention towards more traditional targets? Whenever the racism genie escapes its confines, the sights and sounds of deep-rooted British anti-blackness soon reveal themselves. By unleashing her party's demagogues against Muslim men, Islam and multicultural Britain, Badenoch may not find it easy to rein them in. What will she do, should her colleagues wish to speak freely about the global menace of Nigerian fraudsters, the criminal exploitation of children by black drugs gangs, the social costs of absent black fathers, and so on? Like Rishi Sunak before her, Badenoch is now the hostage of her party's hard right. She cannot care too greatly about the consequences of Jenrick's incendiary comments, because she is in realpolitik mode, doing whatever is needed to preserve her position. Perhaps, as Labour MP Dawn Butler warned, Badenoch is indeed part of a new breed of black politician, one that resolutely serves capital, without regard to skin color. And yet, the North West Essex MP might be thinking that at last, the political stars are aligning quite favourably at the start of 2025. The Labour government has been in office for just 6 months and remains unpopular. Personal attacks on Chancellor Rachel Reeves multiply by the day. According to the Guardian newspaper, some 10 Derbyshire local authority councillors who represent reform have given notice of their intention to resign, in protest at Nigel Farage's autocratic tendencies. In addition, Farage's distancing of the jailed Tommy Robinson and his flip-flopping on the return of Shamima Begum have combined to generate the Clacton MP's worst headlines in years. Donald Trump will soon take power in the United States, with a political agenda that would likely make Robert Jenrick blush with admiration. Elon Musk, a key ally of President-elect Trump, is bringing Tory talking points to a global audience. His split with Farage may be a further bonus for conservative fortunes, cutting off the money and publicity that would have been transformative for reform. And Musk's domination of the news headlines reduces the political pressure on the conservative leader to unveil her program for government. Badenoch has told her shadow cabinet that she has no plans to make big conservative policy announcements in the next 2 years. Instead, she has a new 3-year plan to revive the party and will focus on regaining the trust of the British public. A party spokesman confirmed that Badenoch had no intention of creating policies in 2025 for a probable election in 2028. So, this week's exchanges with the government may provide clues as to what the Conservatives will be doing over the next 2 years to fill the void. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This helps us to keep going and to reach more people with these updates on Kemi Badenoch's leadership of the Conservative Party and the challenges she faces. See you next time.